the surveys actually show that we still have a big proportion of the society, around 30 to 45% of the people who do not understand what is happening right now next to our border. It's clear that we need to take the lead in the negotiation process. We need to impose our vision on how to reintegrate the country through peaceful means.
I believe that the problem with Transnistrian conflict will be automatically resolved after Ukrainian victory.
Hello and welcome back to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Centre and NGO Atlantic Course. And I'm your host, Matt Wickham. In a recent interview with Ukraine Media Centre, Mihai, team leader for the Institute for European Policies and Reforms, and Marianna, international journalist, delved into the pressing issue of Moldova's susceptibility to the influence of Russian propaganda. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching our video. And don't forget to press subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Mihai emphasized the urgent need for the government and citizens to recognize and combat disinformation campaigns aimed at poisoning Moldovians' minds, explaining that if Moldova takes the appropriate measures in response to the ongoing war in Ukraine, the country stands to reap significant benefits in the years to come. Let's take a listen.
Well, in the context of Russia's war against Ukraine, Moldova did a few important steps towards EU integration, and of course the biggest achievement so far was the EU candidate status that Moldova got in June 2022. In this regard, I think there are good prospects for Moldova to become less vulnerable to Russia's hybrid war in the next few years if some important policy reforms, but also actions will be taken by the government in order to increase Moldova's resilience to the external threats coming from Russia. I think it's very important to focus on energy security, to focus on fighting disinformation, and to actually develop a good understanding among the society about the risks and threats that come from Russia and how Russia is trying to impose its vision, its strategy here in Moldova. I think that a big portion of our society still doesn't understand how Russia's hybrid war here in Moldova actually works, and what kind of actors Russia is using to increase its influence and impact here in Moldova. So to conclude, I think it will be I think Moldova will need a few more years to become more resilient to Russia's influence here and to actually cut the strong links that Russia has here in Moldova, and to achieve this goal of actually decoupling from Russia's influence, Russia's instruments that have been used in the last years in order to keep Moldova in a very vulnerable position.
In the midst of a crisis, Mihai tells how the Moldovan government and people have shown remarkable unity and compassion. When the war broke out, they rallied together to support tens of thousands of Ukrainian asylum seekers and facilitated their safe transit through Moldova to the Western world.
Here, both the government and the society acted together very well in supporting the Ukrainian people, in supporting the Ukrainian society in this very tragic moments. Moldova offered support to more than 80,000 Ukrainian refugees in the very beginning of the war, plus there were hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who passed through the Moldovan territory in order to reach to other countries in Western Europe, and we were very open to help the Ukrainian people, because we also understand how dramatic the situation was and still is for their families, for their relatives, for their friends, and so on.
Mihai's concern about the Russian propaganda machine are not unfounded. Despite being a victim of its influence for many years, a large segment of the Moldovan populace still fails to fully comprehend the gravity of the threat.
The surveys actually show that we still have a big proportion of the society, around 30 to 35% of the people who do not understand what is happening right now next to our border, and they think that either Ukraine or both Ukraine and Russia are responsible for the war, which is, of course, a misunderstanding and a wrong understanding of the situation in Ukraine. But this is happening because for many years, unfortunately, those people were victims of Russia's hybrid war, of Russia's propaganda, properly diffused and promoted here in Moldova through different channels, including TV stations, online media, and public opinion leaders that were very active in promoting this information trends, basically. I think it will take some time to change their mind, to change their vision, because for many years, as I told you, they were victims of propaganda, of disinformation, and it takes time to change people's minds, although they understand how big the risk of the war is for Moldova, how big is the threat of war extension towards the territory of Moldova. They still think that to some extent this will not happen, and Russia will never attack Moldova, and we are protected by our neutrality status, although we have a big number of people that are aware of what is happening right now on the territory of Ukraine. We still have this problem of fully creating some kind of solidarity in the society towards the tragedy that is faced by Ukraine, and solidarity towards understanding how big is the risk and the challenge of the war also for Moldova, not only for Ukraine.
Transnistria is an occupied region in Moldova's east, located on the eastern bank of the Dniester River. The roots can be traced back to 1991, when Moldova gained its independence from the Soviet Union. Moldova and Transnistria remains unresolved, and the tensions between the two sides are higher than ever due to Russia's influence in the region and Russia's recent full-fledged war on Ukraine.
Well, when it comes to the settlement of the Transnistrian conflict, the Moldovan government, but also the Moldovan society, sees it only through peaceful means. And this is the position of the government for many years, and we still are on the same position, because for Moldova, seeing how tragic is the impact of the war for the society, it will be of course out of discussion to try to solve the Transnistrian conflict through military means. And I'm saying that also because 90% of the people that live in Transnistria are Moldovan citizens. So they have Moldovan passports, and the government, the Moldovan government, is also responsible for their lives, for their well-being. We continue to say very clear and open that we are not going to change the status quo through military means. We are not aiming at doing that. What we should do at this very moment is to develop a reintegration plan and implement it. Now Moldova is in a good position when it comes to the reintegration of the Transnistria region, and we should take advantage of that. First, for example, now the eastern border of Moldova with Ukraine on the Transnistrian perimeter is closed. It means that all the business people from Transnistria are obliged to export their goods through the right bank of Dnistru, through the western territory of Moldova, and by this we can have a stronger control and also stronger leverage in the negotiation process regarding the Transnistrian settlement. At the same time, we understand that the formats that are now in place for the Transnistria settlement, the 5+2 format that was developed more than 15 years ago, is not relevant anymore. And for the Moldova government, for Chisinau, it's clear that we need to take the lead in the negotiation process. We need to impose our vision on how to reintegrate the country through peaceful means. Although you can annihilate the separatist regime in Transnistria in a few days or in a few weeks right now with the Ukrainian army support, then the second question that will come afterwards, it will be related to whether the Moldovan government can or cannot support the costs related to the reintegration of that region in our sovereign territory.
Transnistria is still heavily reliant on Russia for political and economic support. With Russia's full-fledged war in Ukraine, fears of further escalation in the region have been raised. However, international journalist Marianna believes that a Ukrainian victory will resolve the matter, owing to Russia's diminishing influence in the region.
Thank you for having me. I'm Marianna Prysiazhniuk. I'm journalist for the informational agency Glavcom and fact-checking project Stopfake. And obviously, Moldova, the Republic of Moldova, is under our high attention, also because of what's going on there and possible ongoing and possible developments on the situation. And as we know, there were several attempts to destabilize the situation throughout the rally of anti-governmental protests supported by pro-Russian party. And but I would say that these attempts don't happen just during the large-scale invasion of Russian Federation into Ukraine, but in this context, it obviously has very important context for Ukraine and how regional politics will develop in continuation. I believe that the problem with Transnistrian conflict will be automatically resolved after Ukrainian victory. But I worry about that fact that Moldovan government still doesn't have any strategical requests from this situation, how it should be resolved on their opinion. I have never heard what they are thinking about this, how it should be reintegrated into Moldovan actually constitutional territory. And I have never seen any preparation in regard of reintegration policy and strategical approach about Transnistria. So it's kind of question for me personally, and I think Ukraine also has to pay attention on what's going on specifically inside the Republic of Moldova in this context. But definitely Russian presence, I don't think that it is possible after Ukrainian victory in the region anymore. And the question remains the same, like about the format of regulation, Transnistria regulation 5+2, where takes part both Ukraine and Russian Federation, and it discusses the questions regarding the so-called peacekeepers from Russia, which still present there. I don't believe that participations of a terrorist state like Russian Federation in such formats is possible.
Marianna believes that the recent invasion by Russia has actually helped Ukraine and Moldova to strengthen their relationship and become more transparent in both business and political matters, creating a healthier relationship than what was achieved prior to Russia's 2022 full-scale invasion. Let's take a listen.
During Mr. Poroshenko presidency, Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova had a very good relationship. And I heard one brilliant thought from Moldovan experts that these relationships had been established between political cycles. But after Russia attacked Ukraine on a full scale, Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova have started to build health relationships between institutions, between state institutions. And I think it's definitely true. And that is how we are developing right now together. That is why our relationship has recently started, let's say, because it is a well-known fact that Mr. Poroshenko and ex-leader of Democratic Party of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Vladimir Plahotniuk, who is escaped from Moldova in 2019, if I'm right, he had very close ties and business interests and whatsoever. It created somehow a common space in regard of business, in regard of traffic, in regard of even business, illegal business in Transnistria. But when the migration crisis started, especially, Moldova needed to respond, it being a state on a state level, to impose some kind of mechanism to support Ukrainian people. And definitely, from the one point of view, it created very high tension in the Republic of Moldova in itself. But from the second point of view, it created healthy basement for the further development of bilateral relations with Ukraine in a healthy way, between institutions, between ministries, between politicians, between democratically elected political cycle, not only between business cycle, let's say, or kind of interest groups of interests. And Moldova is going to come in very difficult period, which starts 30 April from elections in Gagauzia, and it will continue 3 years until presidential campaign. It's like elections in Gagauzia, local elections throughout all republic, parliament elections, and presidential elections, and each year after year. So it will be extremely difficult, radicalized period with employing all kind of emotions. Radicalized in sentiments, any kind of manipulations, especially with the topic of Ukrainian refugees, propaganda, disinformation campaigns. That's why I'm saying that ties between Moldova and Ukraine must be very followed right now in order to prevent any kind of external attempts to break this healthy relationship that we has recently started to create.
You've been watching the special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euroatlantic course, dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information about how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and make sure you share our video. Slava Ukraini!